I realized that when I was a little bit too far deep into the left, I realized my own self-sabotage when I was saying that I was fighting for tolerance, but I was using very intolerant methods to do so. I was shaming people. I was even okay with publicly shaming people at the time. I was okay with misrepresenting people, maybe even dehumanizing people without even realizing that's exactly what I'm doing. Not willing to hear any worldview that was in contradiction with my own, imposing my own worldview onto other people, leading with self-righteousness. So everything that I was saying I want, unity, diversity, equality, my behavior was in direct contradiction with those things. That's a perfect example of self-sabotage.
Avi Yemini for Rebel News in London at the ARC conference. The pushback to the WEF. I'm here to talk to attendees who you usually wouldn't have access to, and what you're about to watch is one of those interviews. So when you finish, make sure to like, comment and share, and then head over to followavi.com. Make sure to subscribe to our mailing list and follow me across all socials in case the interview you're watching now might be a little bit too spicy. It'll get me banned off the platform you're watching on now. Followavi.com. Enjoy. Did you grow up in London? Are you a London?
I did. I grew up in London from about the age of 13.
So, do you recognise London today from when you were 13?
In what sense recognise London?
You know, look at some of the protests over the weekend in the last few weeks, and there's this weird alliance between, and I think you originally, from memory, correct me if I'm wrong, you identified as someone from the left, and I see this alliance between this far left and these almost jihadi groups marching in big numbers. And I'm trying to get my head around, especially as a Jew, what's happening here in London that it's playing out in a way, and if you have any insight from your own experience as to what's happening.
I actually don't have any insight specifically on that. That's just my honest truth. And I think it's because it depends who you're connected to in London and what conversations you're having and what social groups you're a part of. Because for me, specifically, I'm a Zimbabwean. So naturally, I'm around other Zimbabweans. I know that I've been in London for a very long time. I've been in the UK for 20 years, since I was 9 years old. But I think sometimes we assume that everyone is having the same experience. My experience is very, very different, you know. When I'm with my family, I'm in Zimbabwe again. When I'm with my family, we're not speaking about politics and we're not overly analyzing things that are happening in different places. So I think there are things that are happening right now. There's a level of division that can be felt specifically right now. But I think for me, it feels a little bit difficult because I think there's the pressure to sort of pick a side and to pick a stance as soon as possible. But I think I learned my lesson from 2020 when the very same thing, similar thing, but just in a very different way, was happening around the George Floyd murder and the protests that were happening with BLM, where my own personal awakening happened, where I realized that I was kind of being told that I need to march and champion for something that I knew didn't feel quite right. I had a lot of questions around it. And I think from that time period, I sort of learned that instead of throwing myself into something, let's say being on the streets right now and marching, I need to stand back a little bit and just ask questions and think, wait, why am I being forced to take a position in this moment in time? And is it right? Is it true? So I think for me right now, there's more questioning than anything. But I think, again, when it comes to London as a whole, it simply depends on what conversations you're a part of at that moment in time.
Self-sabotage, that's something that you talk a lot about.
Yeah.
What do people most often do to self-sabotage?
For me, and you can tell me what you think, I'm curious to know, but it's when what you say you want and your behavior are in direct contradiction. So for me, a perfect example that I can give, I realized that when I was a little bit too far deep into the left, and by the way, I don't over-identify with either side. I think I'm in a very freeing place where I realize that I don't have to force myself to choose. Everything can be a case-by-case basis. It really can. It really can.
That's a very far-right answer.
I know. It's right-wing coded, right? But I think for me, I realized my own self-sabotage when I was saying that I was fighting for tolerance, but I was using very intolerant methods to do so. I was shaming people. I was even okay with publicly shaming people at the time. I was okay with misrepresenting people, maybe even dehumanizing people without even realizing that's exactly what I'm doing. Not willing to hear any worldview that was in contradiction with my own, imposing my own worldview onto other people, leading with self-righteousness. So everything that I was saying I want, unity, diversity, equality, my behavior was in direct contradiction with those things. That's a perfect example of self-sabotage, which is why I refer to cancel culture as collective sabotage, because now it's no longer on an individual level. It's individuals coming together, saying they want a certain outcome, but their behavior is in direct contradiction.
It's amazing because in what I
Right?
do,
What do you think?
in what I do, I often highlight everything you just said,
Really?
especially on the left, only from my own experience of doing what I do. When I go to a rally and I interview, whether it's often I'm disliked by both sides. So it's the
Do you identify with either one?
I identify as somebody that just similar to the way you describe, but many people would describe me however they want.
What you need from
Exactly, but I would go to a rally. Let's say we're in Australia, we've had the far left rallying against neo-Nazi groups, and then I'll go there and I'll talk to the far left that purport to stand up for all those things. But at the same time, I rock up there as a Jew, as a person of colour myself, and then I'm shouted down and attacked in the same way that you describe. And then you go to obviously the other side who proudly say they don't like me because of what I stand for, but I don't see the difference because the intolerance is the same.
Absolutely. Something that people have to be very careful about, and for me, I had to be very careful in this. When I sort of broke out of my own trance, I realized that it could be very easy to end up falling into another echo chamber, but the label is just a little bit different, but it's the exact same behavior. And I always think about this in the context of people that proudly wear the title of being anti-woke. I understand the mission, I understand the purpose, and I think a lot of people in that realm are actually doing very important work and starting important conversations. But be very careful, because you can end up becoming the very thing you claim to oppose. Because some people are anti-cancel culture, but they're very quick to cancel someone if it happens to someone on the other side. So I think it's really important to, again, just allow for yourself to zoom out a little bit and be like, okay, the way that I'm behaving right now, is it working for me or against me? Am I willing to still be in integrity, even if it's someone on the other side that's experiencing this thing? Am I still being willing to stand in what is actually true? So for me, I always do that kind of introspection, and it just keeps me grounded.
Final question, how did you snap out of it? And I know you mentioned George Floyd.
Sure.
How did you snap out of it, and how do we get, I guess on either side, more people to snap out of that and engage in conversation? I enjoy talking with people, especially with opposing views,
Me too.
as long as you can do it respectfully.
Absolutely.
How do you get more people on board with whatever it is?
So snapping out of it, I wish I could give you this one sort of magic answer, but
Come on, you've got 30 seconds to give us the magic answer.
It's gradual, okay? That's the magic answer. It's going to be very gradual, but you have to pay attention. Do you feel uncomfortable when you hear a view that before you can even intellectualize it, you feel it in your body? Your body rejects it before you've even wondered what it actually is. Lean into that. Practice leaning into that discomfort, being like, wait, why do I actually disagree with that? Do I disagree with it because I've been told that it's the wrong thing to think? Or is it because I've actually looked into whatever the thing is, I know what my position is, and I know that it just doesn't make any rational sense? Be curious, And I think when you lean into that discomfort more and more, you will naturally come to a place of some kind of, just an invitation to sort of step into something different. And the word invitation can make it sound like it's an easeful process. But usually it's cognitive dissonance, like a discomfort where you realize, actually, wait, this thing that I had been buying into for maybe 5-10 years is not actually true. Lean into that. That's exactly what I needed to do. So many thinkers that I had rejected in the past, people like Jordan Peterson, I was like, wait, I've never actually engaged with his work. I was just told that I need to hate him because of X, Y, Z. I saw a 2-minute clip and I made a very strong decision about his character, who he was. but he has an entire archive that I've never looked into. So for me, it was very gradual until the moment where I felt comfortable enough to actually start to express that I've changed my mind. So it's going to be a very gradual, slow, unsexy process, and I think that's good.
I guess the question is, how do we encourage others? How does the viewer watch us going, I'm with you, I've gone through the process, or, I already started there in the middle, but I notice my friends, my family that are caught up in listening, being told what to think about, for example, Jordan Peterson, not knowing why they hate him, just hating. How do you encourage others? How are you able to do that? Do you have any insights into that?
You know what I think? I really mean it when I say people want the magic answer. People want me to tell them that it's simple. You just do this one thing, talk to your friends, send them this link. That is not going to work. You know why? Because when people are so embedded in their beliefs and they believe that it's true, you can't change their mind through forcefulness. A lot of the time, it's you actually embodying integrity, you embodying a sense of freedom and personal conviction that makes people think, hold on, there's something there. It's not going to happen in a forceful way. And maybe you start conversations through curiosity, not trying to change people's minds. That's not going to work. And I'm not saying that in some kind of abstract way. Even in terms of psychology, you're not going to change someone's mind through force. Someone needs to feel that they've changed their mind because they want to. And you can do that in conversation, through curiosity, affirming some of the beliefs that another person has, and then allowing for yours to come through just a little, but it takes time. It's not going to magically happen. And sometimes people need to reach the end of their own tether and their own ideological possession before they snap out of it. So I think there's an element of control that we all have to relinquish. Focus on yourself and embodying your own integrity first and foremost, and there will be a spillover. It won't feel immediate and big and grand, but something starts to change bit by bit. And also your friendship circle might have to change. Some relationships might have to change. You will, because you're changing, things in your life will naturally have to alter as well. But I think we need to let go of this idea of how do I change their minds. Change yours first and trust yourself first.
If you think it's important for Aussies to hear their leaders being challenged in a way that they never will be in the mainstream media, make sure to like, comment, but most importantly, share it far and wide. And then head over to followavi.com, subscribe to our mailing list, and follow me across all socials to ensure you don't miss a thing from here in London.